Hello, everyone. It's Phil Jones from Projector Reviews, and joining me is my man, Rob. I love having him on the show to talk about Sony projectors because Sony projectors are some of my favorites. If you're looking for a premium solution for your home theater projector, Sony is definitely one of those brands you should consider. And we have reviewed a large amount of their projectors over the years, and we've always been incredibly impressed. Last year, Rob visited us to talk about 3 projectors, right, Rob? What are these 3 projectors that we talked about last time you were here?
Last time we talked about the GTC 380, so our new flagship, which is a 10,000 lumen triple laser, ultra premium projector that's really designed for commercial use, but we're going to sneak it into consumer homes if you really want to, for ultimate kind of HDR. And then we also had a couple of inline refreshes. We had the VW325 that replaced our 695 as a step-up lamp option. And then we had a 915, which replaced the 885 as our entry 4K native laser projector. Yes. So, and what really was nice about those is the big change was the introduction of more advanced processing. At Sony, it's all about processing. It's not just, being able to put an image on the screen, but it's being able to recreate, what the creative intent really is behind it, regardless of the source. That's really what we're interested in doing.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the fact that I live in San Diego is Sony's headquarters right up the street, and they were all, and Nobu and the gang, and Rob and those guys were always nice enough to give me the ability to try out new projectors right as they are about to be introduced. So I had the opportunity to test out both the 915 and the 715, and needless to say, I was heavily impressed. I've had a 695 as kind of my reference. I always keep borrowing it from them because I use it as my reference projector for many years, because I would go and I would look at a really nice DLP projector and I'd be like, wow, that looks really good. And then I'd go upstairs into my media room and look at that Sony and be like, so it was always nice to have that Sony projector as that reference to kind of, as this is where you should be striving to. So when the 715 came out, I leaped at the opportunity to review this projector, and it offered outstanding performance like you always talk about, and it has all the things that you would expect from a Sony premium projector. Number one, SXRD panels. So Rob, talk about what is the benefit of an SXRD panel.
Absolutely. There are a couple of reasons we go with SXRD, which is, based off, it's an LCOS, platform, but primarily there are 3 benefits. The first is native 4K resolution. So we don't need to worry about any kind of interpolation or any kind of pixel swapping or switching, but we can do native 4K resolution. Actually, the Sony projectors are all 4096 2160, so DCI 4K resolution. But in addition to that, they have excellent native contrast. So because it's a reflective display medium rather than a transmissive medium, we're able to more accurately keep basically the light photons coming straight in, reflecting straight back out, so they don't end up all over the screen, ultimately reducing the appearance of black level or wiping out shadow detail. So they're excellent as far as native contrast. And then lastly, it is a 3-channel system. So red, green, and blue are on screen at all times, and it ultimately gives us the ability to do very natural color, as well as support wide color gamut for HDR. So we really like the SXRD platform. It's what we use throughout our entire lineup. As a matter of fact, all the way from our entry through the VW5000ES, it is the exact same SXRD imager. The GTZ 380 uses a slightly larger imager, which is required because of the significant increase in terms of brightness. So we have to spread it out just a little bit more so we don't melt it. But other than that, it's the same platform that we use on all of our 4K projectors that we've used for many years now.
There's a lot of specs out there about contrast, but we're talking real world, not contrast. We're not talking turn the projector off, turn the projector on. We're talking real world on the screen contrast. Are the blacks black, but can you still see all of the detail? Like I'm wearing a black shirt. Right. You should be able to see all the detail on that black shirt. There's a black Sony projector back there. You should be able to see the black Sony projector, the lens, and all of the detail. So it's not just about doing great blacks. It's about the ability to resolve details at lower brightnesses. So can you see information in the blacks, and as well as and the accuracy of color. So you will pay a premium for an SXRD panel or any LCOS based projector, and you will pay a premium for native 4K resolution. But
Right.
Sony has a level of performance they're looking for, and they're not going to compromise. It's like Porsche. You pay what you pay for Porsche. And that's because they will not compromise. Another reason why you pay for the premium, there's things such as motorized horizontal and vertical in shift and motorized zoom. There's picture positioning on
Right.
the higher end models. They're quiet. No one wants to watch a movie and and when the quiet scene is happening, it sounds like there's a jet taking off behind you. There's
Yeah,
no
you're
light.
watching a quiet place and it's not so quiet. It ruins the entire experience.
Exactly. The other one that kills me is light leakage. Little itty bitty chassis that's super bright, and it's like there's a flashlight in the back of the room to go along with the projector. So all of those things, better lenses, power zoom, power shift, control, it's quiet, all of that is one of the reasons why Sony's command a premium. And that's the reason why we always rank them as some of the best projectors that you can possibly buy. Now moving up from the 715, we move
Right,
up
into
to
the
the
915.
915, the 915. So what do you get here, Rob, when you move
This is
up?
where things really get cool. So this is the introduction of our Z Phosphor laser projector.
Mhm.
So what's really nice, of course, about a laser, and I'm sure, anyone watching this video, you've been around for a minute and done any kind of research when it comes to laser projection. It's primarily about the longevity of the light source. So you're talking about what essentially becomes zero maintenance over, 20 plus thousand hours of lifetime. But in addition to that, what people are less familiar with is that where a lamp not only will lose brightness, but will also suffer a noticeable amount of color shift as you lose that brightness, which requires, recalibration from time to time. Projectors are incredibly stable, not only for the amount of light that they output, but their color uniformity over time. So if you're looking for, a projector that you just want to use all the time, like a daily driver, lasers make a lot of sense. Of course, there are other
Exactly.
benefits. It is a little quieter. We go from 26 dB to 24. Yeah, 2 dB isn't the end of the world, but it is a quieter chassis. And then in addition to that, they turn on very quick. They turn off very quick. There's none of this, you turn on your ultra high pressure bulb, you pop your popcorn, go back upstairs, it's ready to go. With the laser, it's like, I'm ready to go right now.
Yes, yes.
So with the introduction of laser, there are those kind of, more than anything, they're benefits for, convenience, but there are also benefits for performance. And what's really nice about a laser projector, unlike a lamp, is with the lamp, it's a fixed brightness. The lamp is on and you can have it in high mode or low mode, or, if it's a non-Sony, they might have an eco mode, but, the brightness is consistent. It never goes up, never goes down. But with our laser projectors, we have a dynamic light source. So if we have a very dark scene, we can pull back on the amount of light coming out of that laser light engine to further improve the black level. And you combine that with the dynamic iris, we call that dual contrast. Now you have the ability to globally kind of pull down through the iris, but you could still have maximum light coming out. So imagine a scenario like, you remember the movie Gravity, right? Sandy Bullock floating out into space. It's a dark scene, but the stars are bright. So a dynamic iris can pull down so you get good black level, but the light that does make it through the iris can be full intensity. So bright stars, dark scene. And a laser allows you to have that kind of flexibility when it comes to contrast.
Yeah. Needless to say, I love the thing. So in fact, we actually awarded it a hot product award because of its performance. The ingredients that they utilize for their projectors are basically some of the best that are on the market today. But as any chef will tell you, what makes a great meal is not just the ingredients, it's the recipe. And what really helps with that recipe is the brain that they put into these new projectors, which is the X1 processor for projectors. So can you talk a little bit about the X1?
Sure, absolutely. It really got its history back from our television side. So the benefit on when it comes to processing on the TV side of Sony's business is every year new TVs come out. So we're constantly in a never-ending R&D kind of state. That's how the TV business fundamentally is different from a projector business, not just Sony, but all manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're able to do is rapidly improve on the kind of processing capability within Sony every year. We've been doing this for decades. And so we've taken now this X1 platform and ported it into the projector. And the X1 really is about two things. The first is a deeper analysis of the incoming signal. You can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't understand what's going on, you'll grab the wrong tool, for that given problem you're trying to fix. Mm-hmm. So it starts with a much deeper level of analysis. When it comes to things like reality creation, which is our sharpening and upscaling engine, we compare every pixel to every other pixel, both horizontally, vertically, diagonally, and temporally from frame to frame. So we know what something is supposed to be. Is it noise or is it a shadow, that's supposed to be there? And then we can use our database more effectively to recreate what the creative intent is. And then the other thing that we're doing with the X1 Pro Projector specifically is taking a look at HDR. So everyone loves HDR, right? HDR really is one of the most amazing technologies that's come to displays in many years. But there is a fundamental difference between not only a professional grading color monitor, but also a consumer television and a projector in terms of their overall dynamic range. And so projectors need a lot more processing to say, hey, here's this 4,000 nit grade movie, and there's no way that I can put that on the screen. So how am I going to process that image to get the information correct, but also preserve the accuracy of the intent? And so that's what the X1 Pro Projector is really all about, to seriously improve the HDR performance, as well as improve the overall upscaling for sharpness and resolution. I mean, yes, the reality is that, projection enthusiasts are the one type of customers who probably still have the biggest Blu-ray collections. All of us from time to time, we go and we sit down and we say, you want to know what? I just don't want to get up and go get the disc. I'm just going to grab my little voice remote and say, play X movie from XY streaming service, and we've got to be able to process that content as well.
Yeah, and that's an important point. Number one, can you extract all of the performance from your quality piece source, and right, utilize the capabilities, your ingredients to the maximum as a chef? How do I take the filet and how do I take the truffles and all of the stuff and make a spectacular meal? And you need a great recipe, and you need the brain of the chef to do that. And that is what the X1 processor does. But sometimes what really separates a chef is they give you a piece of old chuck or a pig knuckle, and now you got to make a fancy meal with it. And that right, really separates of a really smart chef, or is how they can optimize and get the most from those types of content. So a lot of times we do comparisons using really, really good content, and you could see a difference on a projector that's better processing. Then I go out and get a streaming source with all of the compression and everything else, and that difference becomes even more noticeable. So that is that's a right, very good point. And another way that we can show that is if you look at the 695, I had the ability to take the 695 and the 715, and I shot them on the exact same screen side by side. And you could see, even in this video right now, you can see the difference in these photography. And I want to stress that I shot these on the same screen, both projectors projecting on the same screen at the same time, and they have not been adjusted. So you can see that there is a noticeable improvement just from adding a much better processor.
Yeah, just real quick, I always tend to say that the single most important component in your display system is going to be the processor. It's helpful if you have a good panel like an SXRD panel and a laser light engine and a dynamic iris, but the processor, that's the quarterback. That's the one who calls the play. They've got to figure out how to extract the performance from all these various parts, and has to know what the end goal is. So exactly, we can sit and we can look at a lot of these technologies and we can say, well, LCOS really hasn't fundamentally changed, in a while. Are projectors getting any better? And the answer is absolutely. From a software perspective, from a processing perspective, we continue to be able to extract more and more performance out of these tried and true technologies.
Exactly. So these projectors, the 915 and the 715 that I reviewed, amazing. I love them both. But sometimes people want more. There's always people out there that want more. I want a GTZ 380, but that's a little out of my price range. But I would like to maybe go above maybe a 915. I heard you have a solution for that, Rob. Would you like to talk about it?
We certainly do have a solution I would love to talk about. So we do have a new model that is coming in. This is the replacement for the 995. So this is the new VPL VW1025ES. It has very similar specifications to the 995 that it replaces. So it is 2200 lumens, so it's a 10% brightness increase over the 915. But the major difference between the 915 and the 1025 is this uses our flagship lens, our ARC-F lens. So it's an interchangeable lens system, but the standard lens that comes in is 100% all glass, 18 individual elements, 15 groups, ultra large, aperture on the front end. It gives you just this phenomenal sharpness, center to corner. So if you are looking for kind of that next step in sharpness and clarity, then getting a better lens is really the way to do it.
So if you want to extract all of the performance of that SXRD panel, all 8.8 million pixels of it, you want to make sure that you have sharp glass matters. It also helps as the screen gets bigger and you sit closer to it. So those are a couple of things. So if you start looking at gigantic screens, you really start seeing the benefits of optics. Now, the analogy I use is this has the same megapixels as this, right? This has a lens on it, and this has a lens on it. This lens, and if I take a shot on this one, I take a shot on that one, I guarantee you, because of this optics, you're going to get more. So the goal of this is the lens allows you to get all of the information onto the imager. When you talk about a camera, when you look at a projector, the lens allows you to get all of the detail off of the display's imager onto your screen. So optics are incredibly important, but they're very expensive. Because how much can you spend on a lens these days, Rob?
Oh, a lens for cameras, especially if you're looking, to go back to your analogy, you see a lot of those sports photographers with those, or like National Geographic with those super long lenses. Those are rentals because nobody buys those lenses. They can't afford it. But to go back to another way to kind of think about the lens is this: the image from your projector is at its highest quality as when the light comes right off of the SXRD panel. From there until the time you see it, we can't make the image better. All we can do is either preserve it or we could damage it. So when you have like a dichromatic prism and we bring the RGB back together, okay, well that won't improve the image, but it could hurt the image if you don't do it right. Then you send it to the lens. So you have your focusing lens and your dispersion lens, and it goes out. That can't make the image better, but it may hurt it if you don't do it right. And the same thing with your screen. The screen is not going to make your picture, sharper, but it could ruin your picture if you don't have it right. And so a lot of this is about maintaining kind of that quality. So there are lots of times where this happens to the consumer electronics business. It's why do you spend more money on an HDMI cable or good audio cables? They don't make your stuff sound or look better, but they preserve the quality that you've already purchased.
I guess that's kind of the whole thing about premium, because I deal with hi-fi during the day and video during the night, and the whole message is do no harm. Okay, don't let the room affect it. And we put room traps and bass traps and diffusers and stuff in the room to make sure the room doesn't harm the sound. Then then for video, we paint the walls black. We use these different screens to make sure that the room doesn't hurt the video. We, like you mentioned, we use better cables for both video and audio to make sure that the cable doesn't mess up with the signal. So the whole thing is, like you said, there's a file, and you can't make the file any better. The goal is to get as much of the file as possible and do no harm. And that's one of the reasons why if you're demanding and you're looking for that step up from the 915. You want all the brain, and you want the benefits of the laser and all that, but you want to extract every bit of detail from
Right.
that, from all those ingredients. That's where you would step up to something like a 1025 or 1025. The names the titles are getting longer and longer, Rob. You're gonna run out of
They
space.
are.
Okay.
I
Now,
hope I won't be around until we get to the next digit.
exactly. Now, that projector is outstanding, and that's for someone that's looking for that place between the something like a VW5000 and
Right.
a 915. They want to utilize the lens, but they don't really need the brightness of it, or the chassis
Exactly.
of a VW5000 is too big. So that is for that customer. Now, there's also a lot of people that want the Porsche, but they can't afford the 911. But maybe
That's
they're
right.
looking for something like a Porsche Boxster. They want a lot of the essence that makes a Sony, that they would find in the 715, the big brain, the SXRD, but their budget isn't as high. So you have a solution for that as well, right?
We certainly do. So in the past, we had the 295, but we have a new model coming in for this as well. So the
Mhm,
295ES is going to be replaced by the 325ES. So this will be
mhm,
our brand new entry, still native SXRD, 4K projector. So it's
mhm,
still 1500 lumens, lamp based. Again, aside from the new processor, which is also coming to this model as well, the X1 for
mhm.
projector, it has a very similar feature set to the 295. So the easiest way to think about Sony's lineup, at least these two new models in kind of total, is that the new processor comes in so that the entire family now takes advantage of the same processing kind of chops. But there are
Exactly.
still differences between the 325 and the 715. So,
Mhm,
processing gets you part of the way there
mhm.
with some extra hardware features. The 715 is still a nice upgrade.
Mhm.
But ultimately, a lot of people are looking for, that kind of native 4K performance, but you want to be closer to the $5,000 price point. That's where the 325, that's
Exactly.
where that piece comes in.
Yeah. So if you had a auto masking screen that changed aspect ratios and all that stuff, you may want to go with a 715 because of picture positioning.
Right.
But if I have a 16 by 9 screen, maybe having a dynamic iris isn't gonna really help me in my room. My wall is gray and it's not black, and I'm looking for that projector. And like I said, you'll be amazed at the quality difference you get when you go from like a $2,500 DLP into like a projector like this one at $5,500. You will get a $3,000 noticeable difference in the overall performance by stepping up to a something like a 325. And like we said, that brain makes a big difference. So if people love the 295, it was incredibly popular.
Right.
And remember, the main difference between these two photographs is the brain that is in the projector. And that is a thing. So you should, and I'm sure I will, because by the way, behind me right there, I went by Nobo stopped by and I gave him a tour of one of our facilities, and I made him leave that. So that is the 325. So I'm going to tell you specifically in a review coming soon with more side by side photographs with the versus the 295, so you can kind of see that difference. Now, of course, can we capture all of that on camera, all of that difference on camera? No. But if I can show you in a photograph that there's a difference, in person, that difference is going to be even
Right.
more dramatic. So I'm
Right.
looking
So
forward to playing with that projector.
yeah, and we're really just excited to bring, to be able to let all of our customers that are interested in, Sony 4K projection take advantage of kind of the lessons that we've learned from our TV side, and we brought over this X1 for projector, processor. It's a great leveler, right? It enables us to push the technology forward while still being able to offer, great value. When you think about it, the VPL 325 replaces the
Mhm,
295.
mhm,
When it comes out, is going to continue to be the least expensive native 4K projector, on the market. But that doesn't mean that it's a cheap projector. It's the
mhm,
same SXRD panel that's on our $60,000 projector. It's not quite as bright, clearly. But ultimately, if you have a dedicated space, a semi-dedicated space, or you're willing to close the blinds and limit the amount of ambient light in the room, and you pair it with the right kind of screen, something at 325 is absolutely spectacular. And you simply don't have people complaining about the performance, even though it's an entry model.
Yeah. Like I said, it's like I always use the analogy of a Porsche Boxster. A 911 has a little bit more, has more tech because it costs more, and they can, and the engineers have more flexibility to do more things. But no one jumps into a Porsche Boxster and thinks, it's going to be substantially better than that Toyota that you got on the street. Exactly. So let's go through the lineup real quick. So we're starting now with the 325.
Right.
Then we move up to the 715. Then we move up to the 915. Then we move up to the 1025. Then we move to, you have your ultra short throw that's still in the lineup, but the next traditional one would be the VW5000. And then for those who are looking for, I just watched Godzilla. This is the king of projectors. You can step up to a VW, the GTZ380. Exactly, the king of projectors. So your lineup is incredibly extensive. And if you look at, you have probably the widest range of native 4K projection solutions on the market, and the performance is outstanding, whether you're spending $90,000 or you're spending $5,500.
That's right. And that's what we're really just trying to do. It's when we think about what should go in a projector, Sony has a base, this is a base requirement. We're not interested in, half 4K, quasi 4K. It's like, no, 4K, it's a requirement for this type of product. HDR support, it's a requirement. Wide color gamut, it's a requirement. Quiet operation, it's a requirement. All of these things we say, these are for everybody. When you start to step up, it really becomes the picture quality. There are some improvements, but for the most part, it's about installation flexibility. You mentioned it before. If you step to a 715, the picture position really is beneficial if you have an ultra wide screen and you want to shrink it down for 16:9. The dynamic iris does help with overall contrast, but the primary difference is it's good if you're using an ultra wide screen. When you start to step up from there into laser, yes, the laser helps in the 915 from dynamic contrast, but it's really about being able to get 20,000 hours out of a projector. It's not about getting significantly greater levels of picture performance, like the 325 is terrible and the 715 is great. That's not the way that we structure, our lineup. It's excellence in terms of performance for everybody, and then what additional features do you need? So it's like a steak restaurant where you get a great steak regardless. The sides might cost you a little more, but
do you want the truffle? Would you like the lobster topping and the truffle sauce?
That's right.
And
you're still getting prime ribeye, but you want the lobster tail.
So the 295 is the fillet, and the 715 is the surf and turf, is what you're telling me.
That's right.
So Robert, it's always a pleasure to have you come and talk about the Sony projectors. I've always been a fan for as long as I can consider. Before I worked there, and now after I worked there, I'm still a fan of Sony video displays. If you're looking for a great projection solution, check out the VW325ES. Especially if you're looking to get into SXRD, and if you're looking for that next step above the 915, now you have the 1025ES. So thank you guys for listening, and take care, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everybody.